All right, let's get right into it. Donald Trump's new tariffs are sending some serious shockwaves through the global economy. And pretty much everyone is asking the same thing. Is this just pure chaos, or is there some kind of master plan at work here that most of us just aren't seeing? Today, we're going to break it all down. To really get a handle on the policy, you've got to understand the man behind it. Trump has never, ever been shy about how much he loves tariffs. He sees them as this powerful weapon in his economic arsenal. But a weapon for what exactly? And that right there is the heart of the whole debate we're going to unpack. On one side, you've got a whole chorus of economists and critics just screaming that this is a destructive tax on American families. But on the other side, there's this narrative popping up that this is actually a bold, deliberate strategy to completely upend the global trading system as we know it. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the recent events that kicked this whole thing off. Then, we're going to dive deep into those two competing arguments, market chaos versus a master plan. After that, we'll see what the American public actually thinks about all this. And finally, we'll try to figure out what it all means for the future. It really all kicked off with a series of super fast announcements that, frankly, put the markets on edge and started a massive debate. Let's just walk through the timeline real quick. So in February, the administration hits Canada with these broad tariffs. By March, Canada fires back, targeting American imports. But instead of cooling things down, Trump just doubled down, cranking up tariffs on Canadian steel to a whopping 50%. It's this back and forth, this tit-for-tat escalation that has so many people worried. And that leads us right into the first big argument here. The idea that these tariffs are just an impulsive, economically destructive policy that's creating chaos everywhere. Okay, just so we're all on the same page, let's be clear about what a tariff is. It's basically just a tax on stuff that's imported into the country. The idea, the textbook goal, is to make foreign products more expensive so that you're encouraged to buy American-made goods. But the real-world impact? Oh, it's almost always way more complicated than that. So, how does this actually play out in the real world? Well, critics point to this chain reaction. When businesses have to pay more for imported parts, they don't just eat that cost. They pass it right on down to you, the consumer. That means higher prices. It creates all this volatility because nobody knows what's coming next. And of course, it sparks retaliation from our trading partners, which then hurts American exporters. The potential end result of all that? A slowdown of the entire U.S. economy. And listen, there's a really chilling historical example of this. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 is, well, it's a famous cautionary tale. It was supposed to protect American jobs, but what it actually did was trigger a devastating global trade war that a lot of historians believe turned what would have been a normal recession into the Great Depression. The fear is that we might be walking right down that same road again. But what if that's completely the wrong way to look at this? There's a whole other story, a counter-narrative, that says what looks like chaos is actually a very calculated, multi-step strategic plan. I mean, what if the market panic, the angry allies, the constant unpredictability, what if that's the whole point? According to some of Trump's top economic advisors, the chaos isn't a side effect of the policy. The chaos is the policy. It's the tool they're using to get to a much, much bigger goal. So what is that goal? It's all about re-industrializing America. Look, for decades, the U.S. has watched its manufacturing base get smaller and smaller, especially when you compare it to China. The folks who back this plan, they don't just see that as an economic problem. They see it as a critical threat to our national security. The thinking goes, you can't be a world power if you can't actually build things anymore. So according to his team, here's the supposed three-step plan. Step 1 is what we're in right now. Tariff chaos. You slap tariffs on everyone. Friends, enemies, doesn't matter, to show you're serious and to build leverage. Step 2 is to demand what they call reciprocal tariffs. Basically, if a country charges a 25% tax on our cars, we charge a 25% tax on their cars. Simple as that. The goal is a level playing field. And the final step, you use all that leverage to create a brand new global deal, something that's been nicknamed a Mar-a-Lago Accord. And this is supposed to be the end game. In this new world order, countries would be sorted into different buckets based on how aligned they are with the U.S. Green countries would be our closest allies. They'd get low tariffs and American security protection. Yellow countries would be the neutrals, facing moderate tariffs. And red countries, they'd be the adversaries, facing super high tariffs and strategic isolation. It's a vision to completely remake the global system with America right at the center. So you have this huge, world-reshaping plan on one side. But how is a strategy like that actually landing with the very people it's supposed to help? Because at the end of the day, public opinion could be the one thing that makes or breaks this entire experiment. And wow, the trend here is pretty striking. If you go back to November of 2024, a majority of Americans were actually on board with new tariffs. But as soon as those tariffs became a reality, well, support just fell off a cliff. Today, you've got a 60% majority who are opposed. It really seems like the idea of tariffs was popular, but the reality? Not so much. So what's driving that huge drop in support? Well, the polling suggests it comes down to one really simple thing: prices. A staggering 77% of Americans believe that in the short term, these tariffs are directly making things more expensive for them. Okay, but what about that argument that this is all just short-term pain for long-term gain? Well, it looks like the public isn't really buying that either. Half of all Americans think prices will still be higher in the long run. Only about a quarter think they'll eventually come down. And this has very real political consequences. When people who disapprove of the president's job performance are asked why, the number one reason they give is the economy and tariffs. So this isn't some abstract economic debate anymore. It's hitting people's wallets. And that is absolutely shaping how they view the administration. So, where does that leave us? You've got this high-stakes, long-term strategy that is clashing head-on with sinking public support. What happens when a grand plan meets the hard reality of the checkout line? So let's just boil it down. The market chaos view sees these tariffs as a self-inflicted wound. It's a tax on consumers that history warns us could end in total disaster. The master plan view sees them as necessary, disruptive surgery, a painful but essential tool to re-industrialize America and secure its future in a really dangerous world. You've got two completely different ways of looking at the exact same set of facts. And I guess that leaves us with the ultimate question. Even if there is a brilliant, long-term strategic plan at work here, can it possibly succeed if the very people it's designed to help turn against it because of the immediate pain they're feeling in their wallets? That is the incredibly tightrope the administration is walking right now, and only time is going to tell if they can keep their balance. Educational only, non-investment advice.